So today we have Derek Jeske with Valley of the Sun Life Coach LLC. Um, thank you so much, Derek, for coming on to help share your story and inspire others. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, first, can you tell me, or what can you tell me about your time in the service? You were in the Marine Corps, and I've heard once a Marine, always a Marine. So I was corrected on that a long time ago.
Very true. Yeah, I was joined the Marine Corps out of a need for discipline. I was on a full ride athletic scholarship to a university in the Midwest, and my brother and I wanted to go to OCS. So when we went to the recruiting station and we both signed up, and then he decided not to do it to go to OCS. And so I just went and enlisted and, you know, got home in end of May. And by the beginning of June, I was in San Diego going through boot camp and everything. And, I really enjoyed that time. Most of it was spent stateside here. I did deploy to during Desert Storm, Desert Shield for 6.5 months. And I just, it was just a different experience being able to see a different country, different how, people interacted, and how they, either loved the military or they hated the military during that time. Um, and I look at it as, was I a hero? No, I mean, 6.5 months really doesn't equate to what people before and people after may have done when their deployments and everything, multiple deployments. But I really enjoyed the time in the service, making friends, camaraderie, a lifestyle, as well as just being able to, you know, achieve the discipline that I needed in order to, have that mindset of, you can do anything you set your mind to, and a lot of that just still resonates with me today is, you get up, I still make my bed every morning. I still, brush my shoes off, make sure they're nice and spotless. Most of the time it's tennis shoes I wear during the week, but make sure they're clean, because that's one of the first things people look at you is their shoes. And if they're clean, then you've got a good lifestyle of, you know, paying attention to the small stuff. So, that's it really instilled a lot of personal traits with me, despite knowing that, you're a trained baby killer, as people say, or, you're a trained warrior. But, you look at the smaller things that you get out from that I took away from the Marine Corps, and it's the little discipline things, the little day-to-day stuff that, cleaning, cleaning my house. It's always clean. It's, the white glove test everywhere. My kids hated it because, weekend was, I'm going to clean our rooms and we're going to go room to room. Got out my dress blue gloves and, made sure that places they never thought I was going to check were cleaned. And, it's instilled discipline in them. It's instilled the need to, even compete at the highest level in their athletic careers. So, it's the traits that I got more from it than anything else is just being able to instill those discipline in my kids and the work I do every day.
That's awesome. And so what did you do when you were in the Corps?
I was an 0311 infantry, and I scored high enough on ASVAB to do pretty much almost anything in the Corps. But, to me, the backbone of the Marine Corps is infantry. So I was like, just sign me up for infantry. They gave me the spiel of we could do open contract. And I'm like, but you end up in infantry, right? And he goes, yeah. I go, so why not just go infantry to begin with? So, that's why I stayed. But I was fortunate enough within the infantry discipline to be able to take advantage of different trainings that they had prior to Desert Storm. And so, I enjoyed a lot of going off and doing trainings, like the more valuable you are, with trainings and everything, the more useful you can be, in time of need. So, I've taken also that type of approach to, in the civilian world is the more training, the more useful you are to people, you're like a jackknife. You know, you may not master one thing, but you've got resources and stuff in a lot of different areas that can help people.
That's a great point. And that's a big thing in business too. There's so many different aspects to it that knowing a little bit of everything or most things, maybe not everything, will get you at least started, and you know that you can always ask for help if you need it. So what was your favorite duty station and why?
Being a kid from the Midwest who really didn't get out of the Midwest much, probably my favorite duty station was 29 Palms. As much as people hate it there, I mean, to me, it was just a different lifestyle. You don't have to worry about snow. You don't have to worry about the weather changing that much. It was always a great time. I guess it was with the people I served with, the individuals, because, they made it a great time. Um, you know, if you were homesick, they made sure that they did things to keep you from getting homesick. Or if you were just having one of those blah days, it was always, hey, let's go run 3 miles or let's go do this. And so to me, that I think that was my favorite duty station just because, it was close enough where I could get on a plane and go home for the weekend if I wanted to. But, far enough away where I didn't have to worry about, people just showing up and be like, hey, we're here to see you. Um, I had some other friends that were out there on the East Coast in the Navy or West Coast in the Navy. So, there's times we got together, and being at 29 Palms was close enough to where they were so that, we could just hang out every once in a while. And even now when I go back there for, my kids and their sporting activities, I'm like, oh, I've been here before, and just different areas. They're like, oh, I remember this area. Didn't look like this, but,
Oh,
you know,
yeah. There so much changes in just a couple of years. It's incredible how just things build up. Yeah. But that speaks volumes. The people that we serve with, their family, maybe sometimes even better than family. Um, but to have that attitude, that positive attitude that it's not so much where you are, but it's who you're with, because that
right,
can make all the difference. You could be in, I don't know, in the middle of the desert, but if you're with people that make it fun, it maybe doesn't matter as much. I mean, sure, of course, you'd like to be by the beach or up in the mountains or in the forest or something, but you can still make do with what you have, and having that positive mindset. Is that something that you had prior to being in the Corps, or was that something that you learned, or
it's something I learned. I was an athlete most of my life and, competing at some of the highest levels, but you really understand where, you're broken down from square one and built back up the way they want you to be. And the looking back on it, like I said, the little lessons that you've learned of the discipline of, how to, you know, make your bed first thing in the morning. Is that really important? No, but at the end of the day, you get come home, at least you did one thing.
yes.
So, I learned that from Admiral Mullins,
Mhm.
and he gave a speech about that. And it was just like, you really don't think about it until you actually sit down and listen, and then you look and go, huh, that's why I make my bed. Or, this is why I do certain things, discipline. This is why, growing up, it was always, we'll get there and we'll get there. Now it's like, if you're not 15 minutes early, you know, you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, you better not show up. Those little lessons that trigger, different thoughts. And it's like, wow, okay, that really makes sense, and now my kids, when they needed transportation to practice, practice started at 6, and when I drove them, we were there at 5:30, 5:45. When my ex drove them, they were there at 6 and they were frustrated because they're like, we're late. No, practice hasn't started yet. No, dad said we need to get here at least 15 minutes early. And so, I can see some of that transitioning to my kids, and it's just a pretty powerful message to even start as young as they were on a positive mindset. So, that's always something that I'm thankful for, just because it's something you can pass down to generation and generation.
That's a great thing to influence. It's a great role model. There is something about, even for those that haven't served, if you show up when you're expected to show up, there's no time to like just get in that mindset of what you're about to do or what you're about to listen to or what you're about to it's just I don't know. I mean, it's like going to bed. Bedtime's at 10 o'clock. That doesn't mean that you're in bed at 10. That usually means like if you're going to bed at 10, you're maybe only going to bed at 10:30 because you've got to wash your face, you've got to do all these little things, brush your teeth. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I am very much if you're not early, or if you're on time, you're late.
Right.
That's great that that is passed down to your kids too. My daughter's the same way. My son's in the Navy, so of course he's the
Yeah.
same way. But um, so jumping into the business side of things. So how did you come up with the idea to start Valley of the Sun Life Coach LLC?
Over the years, people have come to me for different resources, different things. I've always been involved in the community, every job I've had. And, everybody was like, well, you should do this full time. I'm like, nah, I got a job. But and as I get older, people are like, well, why don't you do something that you're passionate about so that when you do retire in 10 plus years, then, you have something to fall back on. I've seen a lot of people get out of full-time work and they don't know what to do.
Mhm.
So eventually somebody finally just said, just do it. Just start a LLC so that by the time 10 years rolls around, you're established and everything. So I just sat down on a weekend and tried to come up with a name. And being in Arizona, Valley of the Sun, that's kind of what we experience 350 days a year. So I was like, sure, why not? And everything I've always done has always been community-based, program-based development, things like that. So that's, and just listening, I listened during my full-time job to a lot of people, and I'm like, yeah, I could do this. And so I developed courses on the back end for different organizations if they need it. Different people said, hey, this is a great course. Why don't you develop it? And I'm like, okay. So, I spend my time doing my full-time job, but also with Valley of Sun Life Coach LLC is people just come to me and share their experiences, their stories, and sometimes it's help guiding them to, different resources or just listening because everybody's going through a lot of experiences these days. And sometimes, they'll reach out and be like, and social media forums, someone will say, oh, I need someone to talk to. I need someone to listen to. And they don't really want to go to counseling or therapy. They just want someone just to listen to them. So I'll chime in and be like, hey, if you need something, reach out to me. So, within the last 6 months or so, I've had a few handful of people just reach out just to say, hey, I want to be part of the 22. And I'm like, no, you don't. And they're just like, well, what do you suggest? I go, tell me what you're going through. And I spent hours just listening to them and, really found that rewarding because, again, you don't want to see someone become part of the 22 just because they're getting down on their life and whatnot, and so it's just really gravitated towards doing that. And, as a life coach, you can help people in a lot of different areas. I don't specialize in one thing. You see life coaches that specialize in mental health or physical health and things like that, and to me, if you reach out to with veterans, there's, in Arizona, there's over 500,000 veterans. But, then you look into the social media aspect of it and all the veteran groups that are out there, and, people are always asking for help, asking for resources. So I'm like, sure, why not? So, that's how it became, officially Valley of the Sun United, or Valley of the Sun Life Coach LLC, is just for a need to help people.
That's awesome. And you kind of already answered the next question, which is what is your why? But so we'll skip over that one. What do you love most about what you do?
Um, just being able to help people, see the transformation, whether it's, they call you, they talk for 15 minutes or 2 hours, just at the end of it, they're just like, thanks for listening, and that's rewarding enough, and you ask them, how are you doing now? Do you still feel that way? And they're like, no, I feel great, and that's what's rewarding, and being a life coach, people always say, well, you can make a lot of money doing this. Well, helping people is always a way to help to make satisfaction. I do have a full-time job, so I'm not really worried about the money at this point. I'm just worried about, keeping people from, you know, ending their suffering or things like that just because they don't have anybody to talk to.
Yeah, that's very fulfilling, I'm sure, especially when you can pinpoint that aha moment where or where the turn started and where the up, from the downward slope to where it starts going back up again. And imagine the feeling that comes with that. Um, so what would you say was your biggest learning curve when starting this business?
Knowing you can't help everybody, knowing your limitations as a person, knowing your limitations from, different sides, because people may come to you and say, well, you have experience doing this. And, you know, sometimes you have to say no. And so the biggest learning curve is just being able to realize who I am and what my limitations are. And knowing that, I can't help everybody, but the ones that do need the help that I can help, I surely try to do.
Yeah, that is tough in life in general. That's it. I like how that also fits in with business because, and you brought that up as being, a key factor because you see a lot of businesses that, you know, maybe they offer something, but it's then somebody asks, well, I'm just going to use photography as an example because that's where, I had a photography business a while back, and it was very common that maybe you were very good at doing portrait photography, but then someone is like, well, I really like your work and I'm going to get married and will you be my wedding photographer? It's not the same.
Right.
And some can do both, but there are the stress that comes from that, knowing exactly where to be, when you need to be there, and a lot of people have a hard time saying no because they just want to be helpful, but not really realizing that by saying no, they are actually helping, um, because, there might be somebody better suited to help with, whatever it is that they need. So thank you for bringing that up. That's a great, great thing. Um, so what piece of advice would you give someone wanting to start their own business, regardless of what industry they're in?
Do your research. Find out if you can provide a value for what you're offering. Particularly with life coaching, there's a lot of different niches that you can get into. Um, but it's trying to find a value. What value do you bring to the table and what can you offer the community with that value? Like I said earlier, there's many different facets of being a life coach, but if you can bring a value such as, particularly with veterans, you can relate to what they're going through. Sometimes you can relate because you've been where they've been sometimes, or you've been at least through, the boot camps, you've been through the additional trainings, how hard it is, how it is once you got out, to transition back to civilian life. And just because of that value, they'll connect with you sometimes, and they'll relate to you. So I always tell people if they want to start their own business is do your research. Don't just jump into it thinking I'm going to make $1 million my first year. It's a slow process. You got to be patient. You got to look at, your particular niche that you want to do, no matter what business it is, and then find out if there's a market for it, find out, what it's going to cost for you to get into the business, find out, what the return is going to be. If there's other people doing it, are they going to, how do they do it? Go talk to them, make sure that you have an understanding so that you can be successful, because many people try to go out on their own and do their own business and then they fail and they're like, okay, I'm done. And it's like, you know what? We've all failed, whether it's been in the military, the civilian world. The thing is, you can't quit. You just got to keep going and persevere through the ups and downs of life and just be consistent.
That's great advice. That was a lot of great advice. So,
That's why I'm a life coach.
yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, what are you most excited about with your business right now?
Well, you never know what, no 2 days are ever alike. I do this on the side, but I still find that, when people reach out to you, with different issues, different concerns, different challenges, it's never the same. You can't look at it and it's like, okay, today I'm going to wake up and I'm going to serve 4 or 5 different clients and this is their needs and this is their challenges and issues. But no, because there's always a different facet in life with human beings. And, some of it's insurmountable. And then you're like, okay, well, here's who you can contact in your area. Here's what you need to do. A lot of it's just listening, and you hear the stories that people have to share. And, that's the most fascinating thing is you learn about people, you learn about who they are, what they, what their triggers are, what's really got them in their situation. And, just being able to provide, one resource. It doesn't have to be 6 or 7 or 10 resources, just that one resource to get them over the hump, and then let them know that, what, if you need to reach out to me again, here's my number, here's how you can contact me. And so that's what's interesting is that you just never know who's on the other end of the phone and the video, whatever, there's always new people to meet out there with a
Mm,
fascinating story.
I love that. So, where do you see yourself in the next year? Or I guess where do you see Valley of the Sun Life Coach in the next year?
Pretty much where it is now, still, doing stuff on the side, but if it does get to a point where I need to transition to doing that full time, I will. But I like where it's at right now. It's not overwhelming. It's not, too stressful. It's just, as you say, like a hobby. It's something that I enjoy doing, and wherever it goes, you just never know. I mean, I've been in talks with several different places that are interested in what I do. So, if those ever come to fruition, then, we'll see. But if they don't, I enjoy where things are right now.
And so I'm going to back up just a little bit. So for your clients, do you typically work with um individuals or companies or how?
Both, but most of them are individuals.
Okay.
Individuals and families. Um, and like I said, I can go through different, because all of it's based on my own personal experiences, so I can connect with them on that level. And then we can really start working through some of the stuff that they're going through just because I've either had that experience or have trained in that experience. So, it makes it feel comfortable. So, you know,
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier before we recorded about the training. They did miss out on all that great information. So, how about like once you retire, what are your thoughts on the all of this once, once you do decide to retire, do you want to kind of keep things where they are? Are you
I mean, there's always the opportunity to grow.
yeah,
But if it stays at this level, I'm comfortable with it. But if it gets to another level where it grows once I hit retirement, then I always welcome it because it's providing a value to the communities. It's a value to providing a value to people. And sometimes people just get stuck in their own mind or their own mindset. So it's being able to help them, as I say, uncap the jar and let out what's in their mind, and being able to then say, you know what, this would be a good thing for you to do.
very rewarding, I'm sure. So, how can our fellow veterans best support you?
Um, just know that you're not alone. We're all veterans. We all come from, the same military cloth, but in different realms of it. But, they can support me by just, if they come across a veteran or somebody that needs just someone to talk to or someone to listen to or just someone that can point them in the right direction, they can always reach out to me and say, hey, I know this person, I've talked to this person, they're a good resource for you to contact.
And usually the best way for them to reach out is through your website, correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
It's
I'm cool.
www.valleyofthesунlifecoach.com.
That. We'll have it in the blog as well.
Oh, okay.
So, that is all of the questions that I have for you today. I very much appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge. And I know that you have so much more too. This is a very short part of what, very small amount of what you do. Um, but yeah, thank you again for sharing your time with me today. Us today. And
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
thank you. And so here is that question. Give us your pitch.
Uh, Valley of the Sun Life Coach LLC is a lot harder way.
Yeah,
So I wish I would have done that at the beginning, and then it would have
I
been
know you
easier.
had given it at the beginning.
Valley of the Sun Life Coach LLC is a life coaching business that helps support veterans, individuals that have been transracially adopted, individuals that are experiencing limb loss, and just, overall challenges in life that we can help you with one day at a time.
Thank you.